back to Bangalore for personal reasons, and I joined Texas Instruments India. So I was there in TI for 23 long years. I retired in 2024, and now I'm part of a startup company called Vinyana Tech, which is into the domain of training, VLSI training. I am an adjunct faculty at IIT Madras in the Department of Electrical Engineering, and I'm also adjunct at IIIT Dharwad. So that is a very brief introduction to myself. My areas of interest are all aspects of VLSI design and test. I have worked in the area of high performance computing or parallel processing in the past. For example, my PhD was in the area of parallel algorithms for placement and routing. Even after joining IIT Delhi, I have published a few papers in the area of high performance computing and parallel processing. But of late, I have focused mostly on VLSI design and test. So that is a quick introduction to myself. Ideally, I would like to know all of you in person, and I would like to know more about each one of you. But unfortunately, time may not permit me to get you know very detailed information from all of you. I think there's a lot of noise. Huh? Sorry. All right. So, how many of you are currently in the process of writing a PhD thesis? Anybody is currently writing their PhD thesis? See, the topic that has been given to me is, writing your thesis. Okay. So that is the topic that has been given to me. Uh, so how many of you are currently writing your thesis? Anybody? Are you able to see my screen?
Yes, sir.
All right. So I'm assuming that you can see my screen. So let us do one thing. I hope you have used some form of you know software for writing papers and maybe writing a thesis, etc. I'm sure everybody is exposed to some extent. So if nothing else, all of you would have used MS Word, a very commonly used software for publishing papers and so on. LaTeX is other popular software. Okay? So LaTeX came out of Stanford University many years ago. When I was a PhD student, LaTeX was first released. The original software was called as Tech, TEX Tech. Some people like to say Tex, some people say Tech, and it is designed by a very famous professor. Does anybody know who designed the Tech? Who originally came up with Tech? He was a professor at Stanford University. Does anybody know? You can unmute and speak also. Okay, let me give you the answer. His name is Professor Donald Knuth. Okay, some people say Knuth, or some people say Knuth, some people say Knuth. So Donald Knuth, very famous in computer science. He wrote a very popular book in computer science, which used to be a text many years ago, The Art of Computer Programming. So he was the originator of TEX system, but it was a little bit more complicated to use. So a gentleman by the name of Leslie Lamport was at AT&T Bell Labs. He developed macros that make it easier to use. So that was called Lamport's Tech or LaTeX, and that became very popular among researchers, and it continues to be very popular even to this day. So if you want to use LaTeX on your PC, you can download LaTeX. Okay, there is a tech software available. I will show you where it is. So you will, if you search, you will get, right. See, this MIG-Tech is very popular. Okay, so you are welcome to use that one. Okay, there are a lot of these available now, so it's difficult for me to promote one of those. I personally you have used this MIG-Tech quite a bit, right? So when we were students, there were no editors specifically for LaTeX. We used to use the ordinary editor. The VI editor on Unix was what we used to use. But things have come a long way. People have developed user-friendly software for writing LaTeX documents. And similarly, there is a system called Overleaf. Okay, so I will show you where it is. It's search for Overleaf. Okay, so it's called Overleaf, and if you search, you will find their website, and you can create a new project. Okay, you initially you may have to sign up. If you have not already signed up, you can go ahead and sign up, and then it will allow you to create any number of projects. So whenever you are writing a thesis or a paper, you can create a new project, give it a suitable name, and then you are on your way to creating these documents. Okay, so this is what it looks like. Okay, so there is a uh, editor here where you can type your LaTeX document, and it is a smart editor. They have integrated artificial intelligence also into this editor now, so it can help you in more than one way. So we'll see some of it today. But see, frankly speaking, when you are doing your PhD or if you are guiding a student towards either a master's thesis or a PhD thesis, there are two things, right? There is actual work that we do, and then there is the reporting. Okay, we report that work through a paper or a thesis. So these are two different things, right? And today, thanks to artificial intelligence and thanks to all these online tools, the writing of the paper itself has become easier. Okay, so you don't have to remember commands too much. If you forget, what is the command for creating a table or something like that, it is not a big deal today. Okay, there is plenty of help online. So that is not what really worries me. Okay? So what is important is how do come up with the ideas, okay, for your research. How do you actually conduct the research? What experiments do you conduct? How do you collect the results? How do you make sense out of those results? This is really the most important aspect. Okay. I hope that will also be covered during this workshop to some extent. It is not possible to cover everything, but we can always try to help in some way or the other. So in LaTeX, there is something called as a document class. So documents means, see, we create a lot of different kinds of documents. We may create a technical report. We may create a thesis. We may write a paper. We may be typing a letter, things like that. Right? So each of these is a class. So for a thesis, the document class that you can select could be either a memoir or you could write a report. So you can see that I didn't write the whole report, I didn't write this whole word. It is automatically coming and suggesting that it could be report. Similarly, I could write paper, an article. So in LaTeX, they don't use the word paper, they use the word article. Okay. So you could be writing an article, book, memoir, so many different classes are there. So the good thing about Overleaf is you don't have to download any software, right? It's already there for you, it's online. Whereas if you are using Mixtech, etc., you will have to download all the classes, etc. If they are not available, you have to download, right? The Overleaf has a specific advantage that it's all there. It recognizes, I think, for example, IEEE. I think there is an IEEE paper or something like that. So all those are already there. So today we'll use maybe memoir or something like that. So in addition to that, there are what are called as packages. Okay. So for example, to include figures in our paper, we may use this package called as graphic. Then we need to give a title to our document. So maybe I will call it how to write a thesis. And I can give my name here as the author. And if I want to also include my email, etc., I can write it here. So two backslashes are used to create a new line. Okay. So you can use two backslashes, and you can also write other things like Vinyana text. And you can give your date here. You can also say today. If you say today, it will use today's date. Dr. Tanushri wants to know whether we will have an attendance link. Okay. So then we will have this begin document, end document, and each command, right, will result in a specific kind of output in the. So if I say this, if I say recompile, it will show me what it looks like now. I request all of you to practice this with me so that you can see what is going on. Okay. If you already know this, great, right? So you may see it's saying 0.1. Okay. So there is a reason for that. In any memoir or a report, there are what are called as chapters. Okay. So first thing is, we have to go and think about our thesis or our report, whatever we are writing, right? And we have to organize it in our mind. Okay. So typically, the first chapter, okay, is the introduction. Okay, we should call it as a chapter. Usually, before we write the chapter, we write what is called as an abstract. So there is an abstract or a summary. Before that, you may also have things like a certificate that you may want to include, because every organization that gives the PhD or a master's degree award, they will usually include a certificate. So that can also be a chapter by itself. And then there could be a chapter called acknowledgements. See, if you recompile, you will see that because it is a, chapters are there, it will come like this. Okay. Chapter 1 certificate, chapter 2 acknowledgements, and so on. We don't want the name of a chapter there. So if you write a star here, then it will not, put any chapter number, etc. So it will simply say acknowledgements. It will simply say certificate and so on. If you want this to happen in a new page, you can say new page so that that acknowledgement will come on a different page. So certificate, acknowledgements, then abstract. If you want abstract to be also a chapter like the way we wrote earlier, that is also fine. So in your college, it may not be called abstract. It may be called maybe thesis summary or something like that. So we have to organize our thesis into several sections, subsections, chapters, etc. Right? At the top level, we have chapters. So usually the first chapter is the introduction. Okay. Then we may have a chapter called as literature survey. That may be followed by actual work. Okay, we may have made several contributions. For example, maybe we have proposed an algorithm for, let us say, some scheduling problem or something like that. Okay. So we can write down a suitable title for it. Right? We could say machine learning algorithm for test scheduling. So that could be my first chapter. Okay. Then maybe I have another, CNN based approach towards maybe some other problem, like towards test scan stitching. So we can create many chapters like this. Typically, PhD students may make some two or three contributions, right? And they would have already published some papers. Finally, we may have something called as, conclusions. And then we may have the bibliography. So this means where the references will come. So this is a very rough overview of how we divide our thesis into various sort of different sections. Okay. Now, a common question that is asked is how long should the thesis be, or what is the typical size of the PhD thesis? Um, See, there is no easy answer for this, right? So typically, PhD thesis may be about 100 pages, okay, or 150 pages. It is usually written in double space. Okay? PhD theses are usually written in double space. So 100 pages to 150 pages in double space. Some people write longer theses, but as you know, the length of the thesis doesn't really have much to do with the contribution. Okay. Einstein's thesis was supposed to be only 17 pages. Similarly, Shannon, you must have heard of Shannon, right? Very famous in the area of communications. His master's thesis was about 25 or 26 pages, but it had a large impact. Okay, Einstein's PhD thesis or Shannon's PhD thesis. You may have heard about the person who invented game theory, right? There was even a movie called A Beautiful Mind based on this person. Right? His PhD thesis was, I think, even smaller, 9 pages or something like. But what they did in the PhD thesis was remarkable, right? What they contributed was remarkable. Not everybody can do something like that. So today, on an average, the PhD thesis may be about 100 pages of double-spaced. Okay, and similarly, other question that comes is how many references should I provide? So in that game theory thesis, right? I think he had only two references. Okay, one was a famous book, and another one was related. The second was his own paper that he published. Okay. So that person just had two references, certain extreme. Okay. Whereas the normal PhD thesis today may have anywhere from 50, 60 references. Okay, you can put more. Okay, but you have to be selective. Okay, there is no point in. See, it is the easiest thing to do today. See, once upon a time, it was not easy to collect references. Right, you had to go and look for references in the libraries, and if you could not get access to the papers, latest papers, you had to write to the author for reprints. So that is how we used to do when we were PhD students, right? But today, thanks to the internet and thanks to all the repositories that are there, there are a lot of places where we can find these references, right? If you go to ResearchGate, for example, you will find lots of papers archived. Similarly, archive.org, right? They have lots of papers archived. So there are a lot of repositories like that. So it's not difficult for you to find references. We have the exact opposite problem today. We have too many papers out there, and selecting the right number of papers, selecting the right papers is the biggest challenge. Okay? So when I was teaching at IIT Delhi, internet did not exist at that time. So we used to depend on the library for our library work. And I used to look at the students, I used to have BTech students, master students, and some PhD students also. One way I used to judge them was whether the student is capable of going and doing some library work. So I used to hand over some papers to them because I wanted to give them a initial seed with which they can start. But then I would respect a student a little more if they took that seed and went into the library and searched for some papers on their own. Those students have, they have a sort of a aptitude for research. Literature survey is actually a fun aspect of PhD. So once your advisor defines a little bit of an initial problem for you, see, as mentors or advisors, the help we can give to our students is expose them to something which is, you know, currently a very important area. We believe that this area will remain, very hot for quite some time. Okay. So because once they graduate, right, they have to also continue to do the research for some time, isn't it? See, if I select a topic which is very hot today, but let us say in another 3, 4 years, it is not going to be very hot, right? Then by the time you graduate, right, already, it is slightly, not so popular. Too many papers have already been published in that area. So you are in the middle of a situation where you have too much competition. Okay. So you need to be a little bit careful in selecting your research topic. So that is where mentors can be very helpful. Some of you are possibly acting as mentors today for students. So make sure that the potential should be there. So if the student graduates in that area, it is like the student should be able to continue to do research in that area even after graduating, maybe for a few years until the student finds another area. You see, when I did my PhD, before that I did my master's in IISc Bangalore. So as a master student, my mentor, Professor Patnaik from IISc, he introduced me to the area of hardware accelerators. And when he asked me to work on that area, I had no idea what they were. Okay. So what he did was he gave me a bunch of papers. Okay. He gave me a seed, maybe about 5, 6, 10. And then, he said, why don't you start reading all this? And every Friday, right, Professor Patnaik used to religiously go and spend the evenings in the libraries. In IISc, there is a very beautiful library. And in those days, internet did not exist. So the way it used to work was on Fridays at around 4 o'clock or so, all the new arrivals will be placed on the for display. Yeah, all the newly the librarian would make sure that all the latest journals, they were all put on display. And we used to go with Professor Patnaik, right? He used to ask us to go with him, right? and a bunch of us would go with him, and we will look at all the. And he used to encourage us to read papers from not just whatever area we had chosen. See, if I only look for papers in hardware accelerators or VLSI layout or something like that, I may not find too many papers. So he used to say, suddenly he will show us some paper and say, "Have you seen this?" Right. So it took us a while, right? It took me a while to understand how he is making a connection here, right? So that is what it is all about, right? I mean, we research is all about making those connections. Right? We may read an idea, we may read a paper with certain ideas in one paper, and we may suddenly feel that, hey, why don't I use this same idea in another paper? That is how research works. Right? So today, unfortunately, what has happened is we all try to do Google search. Okay, we go to the this Google search and we look for keywords. So what would happen is you will be shown only certain side of the paper. See, there will be a lot of papers, no doubt. Google will find a lot of papers, but it may not show you papers in other domains, maybe not in this main area, which are still related. Okay, that was the advantage of actually going to the library. Mhm. Uh, you want to experience this, you have to go to the library, look at the journals out of curiosity, right? So each of you should spend a good amount of time in the library. Those who are doing PhD or those who are mentoring PhDs, library work is like bread and butter. Okay, you have to go to the library. If you prefer to do it at home on Google, then you have to try some alternate ways. I think there may be artificial intelligence tools now for maybe locating references. I think now I have heard that there is a deep search option or a deep research option available in Google Gemini. So those, if you want to use, maybe it is still possible, right? Similar experience, but there is a lot of joy in going and reading these papers and trying to make a connection between the two, right? And you will actually find it very rewarding. Okay. So once you have found the research area, then you have to find suitable literature. Okay, and you may find yourself collecting a lot of literature. Okay? So it's, as I said, it is easy to find. Even if you want 200 papers, you can select. You will get it, right? You can download any number of PDFs, right? But the point is, you have to, sort of be familiar with them. Okay, you should make it a habit to remember the names of the authors. Okay, that is something that I find lacking today, right? You should develop a curiosity for who is this author. Okay? So how it happened for us was when we used to go to the library and we actually saw the paper in print. We, out of curiosity, I used to read the biography at the end. Okay, there will be a picture of the author, and it will say, that person is from which university, which department. All that detail used to be there, and that was sort of a interesting to read and somewhat inspiring, right? So that is very important. See, if you just become very impersonal, right? You select a PDF in your hard disk, and you have no real connection with that author or no real connection with the, the work, then it is difficult to remember. Okay, but please try to understand. So that is when you will learn. You will like to. You will be able to select papers properly. Okay? And you can also see if you have a hard copy of the printout. If you have a hard copy of the paper, then you can make your notes also. Okay? When you read the paper, you may write some annotations on the paper as to what is it that you found worthwhile in the paper. Okay? These notes are very important. If you want to do that in a tool, that is also fine. If you have an AI tool or some other tool where you like to make those notes, that is also okay. But the point is, it is not, don't use the AI tool in a blind way and just ask it to summarize, etc. See, what will happen then is when you are asked to speak about the topic, see, you will not have the familiarity at all. Right? The whole idea of doing a PhD is that you become an expert in the topic and you happen to know many authors uh, who have published papers in the area, right? It is important to know who are the big contributors in that area, which university is doing a lot of work in this area, right? When I talk to many faculty, I sometimes ask them, can you name some universities where work in this area is happening, right? And they don't seem to have that personal connect at all. They don't know, right? They will not be able to name the authors of the papers which they are citing, right? So that is where you should, you know, try to be different. Okay, this applies to uh, both master's thesis as well as PhD thesis. So if you are going to actually give the list of 50 odd papers, then the expectation is that you have really sort of gone through these papers and have developed a certain familiarity with the authors. Um, Today, it is even possible to actually know the authors. Right? You can even write to those authors. You can locate their email and maybe even correspond with them. Right? These advantages we did not have, right? Because in those days it was expensive to communicate. Right? We had to go. We had to actually write letters to them. Okay, that was going to take a long time. But today, emails are available, and there may be various other forums where you can meet them, right? So you may be able to take advantage of it. Any questions so far? I have been talking and I'm not sure whether you are all with me. If you have any questions, please ask. Okay. So I hope you understood the organization of the thesis, right? So let us go through each one of these, right? So how do we start writing a thesis, right? What is the order? So unfortunately, you should not start in the order of writing the certificate, acknowledgement, summary, introduction. That is not the correct order to write a thesis, right? So one way to start writing the thesis will be, I will answer the questions toward the end. See, my suggestion is first start by preparing the list of references. Okay? So you can create the list of references. Okay? So suppose the paper is called, let us say I have a paper by Donald Knuth or a book by Donald Knuth, The Art of Computer Programming. and it was, let us say, published by Wiley, John Wiley or something like that. I don't know who published it. We'll have to look at the actual publisher, and let us say it was published in the year 1981 or something like that. So this is a book, and I'll give it a name like no book. So this is like a small mnemonic for myself. Okay, this is not new. So I can cite the paper or cite this book in the literature survey, for example, by doing something like this. We can say in reference, right? So this is called as a citation. Right? So if you recompile, you will know what I'm talking about, right? So you can see that at the end, this bibliography has come and it has given me the first reference, which is no, right? And in the in the literature survey chapter, it has automatically put in reference one. Note has suggested several algorithms for shaping. So the first thing I request all of you to do is prepare the list of references, because when you start writing the thesis, by then you would have collected a large number of references, and you can keep adding. You don't have to have everything in the beginning. You may find references later also. See, for example, later you may find another book. By, let us say, another author's name could be, let us say, Davidson. So we may have somebody called R. Davidson. He has published, let us say, a paper on NP completeness of the scheduling curve. And maybe it has come in IEEE transactions on computers. And maybe it was published in the year 1965. So we always have the author's name, the title, and where it was published. And if you have more details such as page numbers, you are welcome to give those. Okay. So notice that Davidson and Knut, I have ordered them like this because Davidson happens to, be start with a D, whereas Knut starts with a K. So I would like this to precede this reference. Okay. So the references are often sorted in the on the first name of the last. I'm sorry, the last name of the first author. So in India, we tend to write the full name like this: Richard Davidson, etc. It is okay to do so, but you should be consistent. Okay, here you can call it Don and Knut. Okay. So either have all of them in this format, or all of them with the abbreviation. Okay, see, if you don't know the name of D note, and if you are just going to call it D note, Here also you should say R Richard. Maybe this is actually with two people, R Davidson and maybe S Horowitz. So sometimes we have two authors, sometimes we have three authors. What happens if there are many authors? Then it is better to use the et al. Okay, so for example, there could be another author. So let us say we have Sahni paper. So Sartaj Sahni and Ellis Horowitz and see, suppose there are many authors, then we can simply say et al. So more than three authors, it is better to just give et al. Just name the first author and say et al. That means and others. Algorithms for uh, test improving test coverage. And maybe this is published in Journal of Electronic Testing. So the advantage of maintaining a database like this is automatically it changed, right? I mean, it went ahead and renamed this as 3, okay, because now it is a third reference. Okay? So when you use MS Word, etc., for this, usually it's a painful thing to do this, right? So if you end up making any small change to the list of references, you have to manually go and change all the citations. But here you don't have to do it. Okay? So it will also, order everything for you. So it will put the number 1, 2, 3, etc. Are you following? So what is this 99 here? This means what is the number of papers I'm expecting? I want at most 2 digits. Okay. You can put 999 if you have many more. So there are some styles that you can, I think if you say alpha here, it will give you a different style. See, this means the numbering is 1, 2, 3. In some, I think your ACM follows a different way of citation. Okay. So there it may be called DH65. Okay. So it will take the first letter of D, this first letter of the author, and the first letter of the second author. It will automatically call it DH65 or something like that. And if there are many papers by the same authors in the year 65, it will automatically add A, B, C, and all. Okay. So there is a whole system called as BibTeX. Okay. So you can create these .bib files where you put this in a certain language. Okay, so that is another separate topic by itself. How to create this bibliography files, and you may be able to find them online. So if you search for .bib, you will find possibly lots of people have already put repositories to it. So feel free to download them. But once again, I want to warn you of reusing what is already available, because see, then what happens is you don't develop a connect to that paper. It is just there as one of your citations, but if somebody were to quiz you on that paper, you don't know what it is on, right? So you don't want to be in a situation like that. Okay, the whole idea of doing a PhD is that you emerge as an expert who can talk about this topic, who knows the literature background, right? So why do you think you are being asked to write literature survey? It's not just a tick mark. Okay, I have you written the literature survey chapter. Yes, that is not the point. The point is that in the process of writing that literature survey, you became very familiar with a lot of literature that is published, and you have a good understanding of what are the most important contributions in that area. Okay, and you have gone beyond that, and you have possibly produced a small contribution of your own. Okay? So that is the idea of. So once you prepare the bibliography, then my recommendation is go to the literature survey. You may have given about 50 papers in your bibliography section. And should we go and talk about every one of them? There may not be any space to write, something about each and every paper out there. Okay? We have to select the most important of those 50. Okay, maybe there are 10 papers which are directly relevant to you. You may have also cited some books. You may have also cited some websites where some software was available and things like that. So there is no need to talk about each and every uh, paper or URL or book that you may have cited. Okay, that you may have given in the list of. You are expected to cite each one of them, but you don't have to include an in-depth discussion of all those papers. See, sometimes we just want to say several authors have considered optimization problems um, in the area of design, in the area of chip testing. So there you can include all these references, David notebook, Davidson algorithm, and Sahani paper. So let us say we want to look at Davidson book. So here you may actually give a large number of papers. Maybe you will cite 10 of them. But among them, maybe I'm only going to, give an in-depth discussion about one or two of them. Okay. So if you recompile this, it will look like this. It will say 1, 2, and 3. So it is possible that I want to refer to about 15 of these. Okay. Then you can also write, like this. You can say from here to here. Okay. So this will look slightly different. It will say 1 to 3. In my case, there may be 10 different papers here. Okay. Then how do we go and write the literature survey? See, the idea of literature survey is not to give a tutorial. After reading all literature, you have understood the problem. Okay, that is the expectation. That they want to know what is the problem you are solving. In order to describe the problem, you need a formal notation, right? So that notation could be, let us say, you have a graph of some kind. Let us say there is a graph, an undirected graph, where the nodes of the graph represent something. They may represent tasks, right? And the edges may mean something. Maybe it's a directed graph, and the edges represent the dependencies. So that is what is called as a notation or a formal notation. We need a formal way to describe our problem. We use symbols, right? So let n be the number of tasks. So this is a notation. Let alpha and beta indicate the scheduling parameters. So all kinds of things. I'm not, this is not a real example. Okay? I'm just showing you, what notation really means. Okay? So when you use dollar, it uses mathematical notation. So this capital N is appearing in the mathematical font. Okay? Similarly, alpha and beta are mathematical fonts. Okay? You can also write, suffix. So something like this. So the literature survey section usually begins by explaining the importance of the problem. See, maybe you're explaining a problem on test scheduling. So, make it clear why you are solving the problem. What interested you in solving the problem? What attracted you to solve the problem? And what is the state of the art today? Is it considered as a really new problem that, is very few people have looked at it? Or maybe it is like it has been around for a few years and people have published papers, but it is none of those are really fully satisfactory, and you still feel that there is a limitation in the literature. So the idea of literature survey is to introduce a notation, introduce the problem along with the notation, explain its significance and why it is worth solving, why it is not an easy problem to solve. It may be an NP complete problem, or it may be a very complicated problem with too many variables. It's a very messy problem, right? And somebody has to bring a little bit more structure to that whole problem, and that is what maybe you are doing, right? And then what people have done to solve this problem. It's not that you are the first person to solve it. Maybe there are a few others who have looked at this problem, and then give credit where credit is due and say this is what has happened, and try to look at the history. Try to go in the chronological order. Maybe Sahani was the first one to observe something and publish a paper. Then Davidson came along and he did something else. He improved it. So that literature survey will also, when I read that literature survey, I can easily understand whether the student has really read these papers and has got a good grip of the subject. It's not just, it's easy to use AI tools and write something. It's the easiest thing to do. But then it is not your literature survey. Okay? So be aware when you go to interviews, etc. It is your knowledge that is important. You may have written a lot of papers, but that scholarship, okay, will show only when you start talking about your research. They are all called PhD scholars for a reason. There is the word research scholar is used for a reason. Okay? We expect you to become scholars who know a lot of stuff. It's at your fingertips. Okay? You can explain that problem even in the middle of the night. Somebody wakes you up and says, explain the scheduling problem. You are able to go ahead and describe it. You may be able to name many of the authors who have worked on it and what is the limitation. So literature survey not only brings out the outcome, but also the limitations of the past work. When people start looking at a new problem, the early authors who come and start working on the problem often have, some limitations. Okay. See, in the 1960s, when Donald Knuth was solving certain problems, he didn't have the, kind of computers that we have today. So it won't be fair to expect them to have solved the problems that we can solve today with the limited resources that they had. So if you go in the chronological order, you will realize that as time passed with better tools, better solutions came along. But then problems also tend to become more complex. See, with time, not only do we get better tools and better computers, etc., but we may also have, the problems become more and more complex. Right? So you can explain such things in the literature survey, and then at the end you can say something like, um, we have reviewed these problems in this chapter, and we have brought out the limitations of the existing literature. And in this thesis, our intention is to consider overcoming these limitations. And in chapter 3, we will look at an algorithm which overcomes one of those limitations. It is faster algorithm, or it is maybe more memory, efficient algorithm, or whatever it is. So the literature survey should not be just it's not used to just say that, I read these papers. How do these papers relate to my work? Without that connection, the literature survey is not very valuable. Is that clear to everybody? What is the purpose of the literature survey? This is true in papers also. When you write a literature survey in a paper also, the objective is not to celebrate what the others did. It is not a point, it is not the place for us to give a tutorial on all the previous work. No, it is a way to quickly say that, a lot of others have done some smart things, but, I am smarter than all of them, and I have improved the algorithms or architecture, etc. So each chapter should begin with a introduction. Okay. In the literature survey itself, you may have an introduction. Then maybe you will have another section on test scheduler. Then maybe another section on scan chain ordering. Maybe these are the problems you are considering. Then maybe another section on testing of 3D chips. And it is good to give a label. So it can say literature survey test schedule. So this could be the label for this. Similarly, I can have another label here. The advantage of that is we can say as explained in reference. See, it is showing you which are they. So we can say this one. So this is a reference. There is a difference between a citation and a reference. Okay. See here it says as explained in 2.3. Okay, or maybe it should say section. Okay. As explained in section 2.3. The problem of scan ordering is so references are for labels like this. You may have a figure which you may have to refer, you may have a table that you have to refer, or you may refer to sections and subsections. Okay. So you are welcome to have sections, subsections, subsections, etc. But generally, it is enough to have subsections. There is no need to keep on making subs. It becomes unnecessarily complicated. So the how long should the literature survey be? So maybe if your thesis is out about 100 pages, it is fair to have a 20-page literature survey. About 20% of your thesis could be your literature survey. And whenever you are illustrating anything, you may want to have pictures. See, for example, if you are talking about a graph for task graph and so on, you will have to draw that graph somewhere. Okay, you will have to use one of the authoring tools. Okay, maybe you can use it in PowerPoint. So that is what I normally do. I find PowerPoint to be a good tool for creating drawings. Okay. So I can go to PowerPoint. So there I can draw something. I can create a task graph. And we are welcome to, I mean, you did not have this graph filling, etc. can use black or whatever you want, and you can also say weight, etc. If you want to call it T1, T2, and you are welcome to increase the size so that it is more visible. So try to draw your own figures, okay? Unless you can find something that people are allowing you to share, right? Don't try to copy anything from the internet. Okay? So please avoid copying, because later you may, unfortunately, people will point it out. Microsoft is not very intelligent. Then what you can do is you can create this snipping tool that you may be familiar with. So use that to whatever you want to connect, okay? And then save it in a suitable location. So right now I'm going to save it in downloads. Let us say I call it task graph. Okay, you are allowed to put it in either PNG or JPG formats. And then you can go back to your overlay. There will be an upload button somewhere. So if you say upload, here is my, so we have uploaded that hopefully, right? Then come to the place where you want to include it. So figure, see, advantage of this overlay phase, it puts all these useful information, right? The begin centering, it's centered automatically, right? Then include graphics. Finally, here is where you have to go and put that. See, it's even telling you this. Okay, it knows this is what you have uploaded, so it is giving you that option. This means make this 50% of the total. You know, so if you want, you can make it 75% or something. And the name of the figure can be figure task graph. Caption can be example of a task graph. So if you recompile, you will notice that this graph has come here. Okay, so it has taken 75% of your line width. Okay. So if you want this to be smaller, you can play with it and make it 50%, then it will become small. Okay. So, so you must make sure that your figures are visible, right? This is known as the caption. Okay. And you can refer to this graph by saying refer to figure this fig task graph. See this one. We see that there are four tasks: T1, T2, T3, T4. T1 must be completed before T2 and T4. So you can see that overleaf is also trying to give you how that is going to look like. Okay. So the moment you write T1, see it is going to show what it looks like. Okay. So equations, etc., are very easy here, right? If you don't want to remember how to do the equations, etc., today the AI tools are very smart, right? They can give you the equation. For example, let us take some equation here. So I'm just going to write it here. The binomial theorem is, let us say, a plus b to the power n. Sigma of NCR a to the power r times b to the power n minus. R goes from 0 to n. Okay. See, I want to type this in LaTeX. Okay. Of course, I can learn the language and you can do it, right? But it may be fairly easy to just copy this, okay, and then give it to either one of these AI tools, whichever you like. Say, provide the LaTeX typesetting. So it even recognizes it's a binomial pair. Okay. So this is a command. Okay. If you give you this, then you can go and plug it into this. So you have to put begin equation, end equation. So it even shows how it looks like, etc. Right? So recompile, you will see that equation has been. So you don't have to struggle and try to learn this language. Okay, now AI is available to do this kind of stuff. Okay. In fact, it becomes very easy if you have to do all these kind of things, right? Suppose we also want to say which is equal to, right? Sometimes we want to write a lot of these, like we are deriving something. So just put that as an image, and AI is smart enough now to typeset these things. Okay. So we talked about literature survey. We talked about figures. So including graphical elements like figures and tables is very important. Okay. So you can use the AI tool for here tables also. See, suppose we want to generate a table. So suppose I want the table to have and you can put all these other things, right? So notice that it will possibly come up with a, so it has done all the hard work. Okay, you don't have to learn all this yourself. Okay, and go and plug it in here. So wherever you want to introduce a table, you can put it. And you can give a label. Maybe we can call it table comparisons. It has put the table, and it is very smart. If the table is very long, it knows how to, sort of adjust the table properly so that it will fit. For example, when you publish IEEE papers, they give you only 4 or 6 pages and two-column format. The table may be, occupying too long. It may be very wide. So these AI tools are very smart. They are able to help you in adjusting the size accordingly and all. Okay. So use tables and figures to break the monotony of your writing, right? Um, then use colors in a judicious way, right? Nowadays, I think theses are given in PDF format. Nobody sends I think, the printed thesis anymore. So colors will appear when somebody opens the PDF, and so it's okay to use colors in the thesis. When you use graphs, etc., you are welcome to use colors. But make sure that the font sizes, etc., are such that they are readable. Otherwise, you will unnecessarily antagonize the person who is reading the thesis. Okay. Um, Next is, the three or four chapters where you are trying to make some original contribution. Each chapter can begin with a small introduction, which says, in the previous chapter, this is what we have done. Maybe one paragraph to summarize what the previous chapter did, and then say that, in this chapter we are going to do this, right? So it's always a good idea to have an introduction. So this is an introduction to the chapter. At the end, we can also have a conclusions of the chapter or summary, and many other sections which go into the details of the alphabet. So this is a very, if you write it properly, then it is very pleasant to read the thesis. Right? The mistake that a lot of people do is they write the chapters without planning, and as a result, there is a lot of repetition in the thesis. Right? So the same thing is being said everywhere. Okay, that can be very irritating. So make sure that you are not repeating yourself again and again, because that is why the literature survey was written, right? The problem statement, the notation, etc., was already developed in the first chapter. So you can go back and say that, we have already introduced this problem in chapter 2, right? There is no need to again write about the same algorithm once again, right? So I find it very annoying when the same thing is being written over and over again. This happens because sometimes what students do is they publish maybe two or three papers from their thesis, right? The papers would have been already published, and they simply include those papers and then try to edit. And in each paper, the same thing has been written in the introduction. So and sometimes it is conflicting also, right? They said something in first chapter, the second chapter they are using a slightly different notation, and things are slightly differently stated. Then it is not a thesis anymore. It's like a collection of, see, I can read your paper if you want, okay? But this is not a paper, this is a thesis. It should make sense from cover to cover. Remember that the examiner is not going to read a paper. He or she is reading the thesis from cover to cover, and he does not expect you to, say the same thing again and again, or say conflicting things. So you are expected to read the thesis before you submit. Okay. I have come across, unfortunately, many theses where the student has not read the thesis. As a result, a lot of errors are there. There are even typesetting errors. There are, some references are missing. Okay, there are question marks that are appearing because there is an error in the citation and things like that. That is the way these compilation errors do come. See, for example, here, if I write, if I make an error in this, let us say by mistake, I forget this, right? Then there'll be an error, right? This doesn't exist. Okay. So as a result, it will give you an error. If you ignore all this, it's even suggesting a fix. Okay. So the thing is, it will tell you. In fact, I think they have even collaborated with Grammarly to even fix your grammatical errors and so on. Okay? But of course, I think you have to pay for all those things. Okay? But today, if you get a subscription for this Grammarly, etc., Overleaf, then a lot of things are available. Your grammar will be checked automatically. Your writing style will be improved. Okay? These are all available. But like I said, the ultimate aim is not to just get something done, but that should, sort of reflect in your scholarship. So when you present this thesis to someone in your final, defense or something like that, that scholarship should be visible. Okay? So using all these tools, etc., may make you look very smart on paper, but that may not have sort of gone inside. Okay, when that happens, people get disappointed. Okay? So each of those three chapters that you may have written for contribution, their length should be maybe around 10 pages, 15 pages. Okay, that is a in double spaced. It's not very, including figures, tables, etc. Each of them can be 10 to 15 pages long. Then we write the conclusions chapter. So the order is first make the list of references so that you can, think about what all references you are including, what should be covered in detail in the literature survey, etc. Then write the literature survey, then write the other chapters. Finally, go back to write the introduction and the conclusions. Okay? So the mistake a lot of people will try to do is they start with the introduction chapter. That is very, difficult. Introduction is a hard chapter to write. Okay, when you have written the other chapters, it is very easy to write the introduction. What is the introduction anyway? Introduction is about why am I solving this problem? How is this problem important? Okay, the motivation for solving this problem. And very briefly talk about the history. How did this problem originate in the first place? Who are some of the authors who have studied this problem? So there it may be a little bit of a, don't go into too much detail there. When you're writing the introduction, don't start writing about literature survey there. Just very briefly say that, there is, history to this problem. Davidson has done this, Sahani has done that, Knuth has done this. And you can also mention that, we will review this in detail in chapter 2. Okay? So that you can tell the reader that, a more detailed explanation will be given later. You can have a very brief one or two sentences about these literature, the papers that you are citing, just to give an indication that, where the state of the art is. So the introduction can be typically about 10 pages in length. It can also be divided into a couple of sections. At the end, you should introduce the entire thesis itself. You should say the organization of the thesis is as follows. In chapter 2, we will look at literature survey. In chapter 3, we look at this algorithm and so on and so on. So introduction is like a sneak peek. Okay, it's like a trailer of the movie. Okay, so the introduction should excite the reader to read further. It should not give away all the details. Okay, it should still give some motivation to the reader to say, look, I have very interesting things coming up in chapters 2, 3, 4, and 5. And there is also a very nicely done literature survey that is coming up in chapter 2. Please read. Okay. The summary is also like that. The summary is even smaller than the introduction. See, the whole thesis may be 100 to 150 pages. The introduction is only 10 pages. The abstract is typically 1 or 2 pages. In that 1 or 2 pages, you have to capture the essence of the whole thesis. Okay. At the same time, you should motivate the reader to read further. Okay. They must be excited about that particular topic, and they should say, "Wow, here is an interesting thesis." Right. The student seems to have made very good contributions here. Right. So they should be sort of attractive. Okay. The same is true for papers. In papers, the abstract is not so long. In papers, the abstract may be just 250 words or something like that. So IEEE will use the abstract to sell the paper. So when you go to IEEE website, you can see that abstracts are free. So if you find the abstract interesting, then you may want to buy that paper from IEEE. So the abstract is the sort of like the selling gimmick. Okay. The other question that sometimes comes up is what is the difference between the abstract and the conclusions? Right? See, anyway, you have written a chapter summary. You have also written, the individual chapters, and there you have written some conclusions already, right? Then what can we possibly write differently in the conclusions chapter? Right? So you might say, sir, I'll end up repeating. A few sentences will get repeated, no doubt. Okay? Because when you summarized your contribution of chapter 3, you had summarized that, I have improved this algorithm, I have improved this architecture, my algorithm works faster, or my method is doing better. You would have already written that. Now you're sort of, coming to the conclusion of the entire thesis. Okay. Already the reader has read the literature survey, understood the problem, understood the background. Then the reader has understood the contributions you have made. So there is already some conclusion in the mind of the reader, right? I mean, the reader is an intelligent being. He or she has understood your thesis and they have some conclusions already. But you want them to look at the thesis from your viewpoint and say that, these are the things we have done and these are the things that you must appreciate. So you are sort of drawing their attention to the good things that you have done. And you are also not, uh, you know, unaware of all the limitations. See, any work will have limitations. So maybe you have oversimplified certain problems or you have simplified certain things. You have made some assumptions which can be challenged, right? See, whenever we solve a problem, the real world problem is very messy. And trying to solve the real world problem in the messy form is very, very painful. Right? So usually students make some assumptions to make the problem more tenable, okay, more pliable. So those assumptions can be challenged. So you can yourself point them out and say, these were the assumptions that I made, and and try to justify, why you made those assumptions. Okay, and say that the future work will be to start, relaxing some of these assumptions. There may be some limitations that can be overcome. You have some ideas. After all, you are a PhD student who is finishing up your thesis, and you have a career to look forward to. You may want to go and become a teacher somewhere. You still need problems to solve. You don't have to solve everything in PhD. So you can possibly indicate that these are some more things that I plan to do in the future. So many people think that future work means what the world can do. No, the future work is what you are likely to do in the future. It's not that you are identifying some problems for the world to solve. Okay? Any questions so far? I have seen some questions come up. Let me look at those questions. Look at those questions.
Good morning, sir. I am Vineet, sir. The very first question was Ankur Mishra.
Okay, okay, here it is, here it is, here it is. Um,
He says, how should we write our own paper which have already been published in PhD
yeah,
thesis?
yeah, we need, I'm looking at the
Sir,
questions now only.
sir, please.
Sir, in PhD thesis writing, how should we write our own paper which has already been published? I think your question is well understood. See, I think unfortunately this plagiarism check is done in a very sort of a unintelligent way. So there is naturally going to be some overlap between your own paper and the paper that you have summarized in your thesis, right? Um, so frankly speaking, that overlap is justified. Okay, it's your work. You are not copying it from somebody, so it's not plagiarism. Okay, your college expected or your university expected you to make some publications out of the thesis, and that cannot be very different from what you are reporting in the thesis, right? So there will be some overlap. Okay, that is not plagiarism. Okay, but at the same time, unfortunately, if the authorities are not easy to sort of talk to and they just blindly return your thesis saying there is plagiarism, etc., then you have no choice but to rewrite some of it. Okay, try to use your AI tools to summarize them differently or something like that. So that is what I would advise you to do. So it's a very silly advice I can give you, but unfortunately, it's a sort of a silly problem to solve also, right? I mean, how can our own paper be considered as a, borrowing from our own paper is considered should not be considered as a plagiarism, right? So somebody asked about how is plagiarism detected, right? There are a lot of online tools for checking plagiarism. Your university may be using one of those online tools. You can also find these tools online, right? Grammarly, for example, has a plagiarism check. And very frankly speaking, these cannot be foolproof. You understood, no? It's not easy. How can anybody claim that I am checking plagiarism? You tell me. There are millions of papers out there. What is the database? Have they looked at the most recent papers? May not be, right? They are all simply, saying that there is 10%, 15%, all kinds of nonsense they will say. Okay. So unfortunately, we have no, arguments because, they have the authority, right? So you will have to rewrite the thesis a little bit so that that plagiarism comes, that language looks slightly different, and as a result, it appears to be less. The percentage of quote unquote plagiarism will come down. So Ankur Mishra, your question was how is plagiarism thesis checked, right? So you can find all these tools, man. Uh, just search for online plagiarism checking tool or something like that. How the self-plagiarism? Okay, that's already addressed. Do I need to cite these AI tools in It's a good idea, right? Why not? I mean, if you have taken help from some AI tool for doing something, there is nothing wrong. You can say it in your acknowledgement. You can say, I thank Gemini for helping me in generating the tables or whatever, right? There is nothing wrong. Acknowledgement may be a good place to. We don't have to, it may not make sense to put it in the bibliography because I may have used Gemini to generate some images or something like that. So, in the thesis also, if you have generated a figure using Gemini, you can give credit in the caption itself saying, created with the help of Gemini. All right, what else? Nice way of expressing the session about the plagiarism. Okay. Any other questions? We have 15 minutes more.
Participants, you can raise your hand and we can unmute you if you want to ask questions.
Yeah, yeah. See,
Please
the
raise
other
your
things
hand.
that you must know about the thesis are as follows. Okay, Ankur has something. Can we have access to recordings? Okay. Yeah. The other thing that you should know is that at the end of the thesis, you should do a spelling check. See, spelling check is automatically happening. Okay. See, for example, here, I think it expects you to say acknowledgements without the E. Okay. So there are two spellings. I think the correct spelling is acknowledgements without E. Okay. So here, if I write E, it is giving you that. So you are supposed to watch for it, okay, and correct it, right? So all kinds of errors may be there. Like I told you, right? This may be misspelled. Okay? Then when you compile it, that error will come. Okay? You are supposed to go and make those corrections. So today, AI is also very helpful, right? See, for example, traveling double L is there, right? And he is also giving you some better writing. Okay. So you can say, for example, the problem of scan chain ordering. Instead of that, he is saying problem of ordering scan chains. Actually, that's a good suggestion. So we can accept it. Okay. So these are things that, but the point is you must be, when you submit a thesis, it's important to make sure that, nothing is missing. You should not have forgotten to include a figure or something like that. You should not have forgotten to put captions for figures. You should not have forgotten to cite these figures. I'm sorry, refer to these figures or cite all the papers. There are two styles for references. One is you can sort all the papers in the order of the first name of the, I'm sorry, the last name of the first author. Okay, I hope everybody understands what first name and last name are. Richard, if you have Richard Davidson, Richard is the first name, Davidson is the last name. So if this was, let us say, Samir Sahani, right? See, in India, we usually go by Samir, right? But in the formal writing style, we should use the last name. Okay. So don't refer to Ramesh, etc. Okay. His person's name may be Ramesh Harjani. But I think you should say Harjani rather than Ramesh Harjani or Ramesh or something like that. Okay. So if you want to refer to a paper by Ramesh Harjani, you can say Harjani and whatever, Harjani and Horowitz. What other questions do you have? Appendices, right? The appendices should be included after the bibliography. Okay. So I think you can say appendix. And then if you say chapter, you can say whatever it is, like derivation of equation, continuity equation. Okay. So if you say that, it should give you that this will be automatically called appendix. Okay. So there are, once upon a time, we used to teach how to write LaTeX and all those things, but today I think it has become very easy, with the help of AI tools. You don't have to remember any of these commands. Okay. So just take advantage of AI to help you typeset, etc. You have already, see, the point is that is the easy part. Okay. the most of the time should be spent in doing the real research. Okay, reading about papers, reading all the literature, making notes, formulating the problem, finding suitable solutions, comparing that solution with existing solutions. All this is the real research. Okay, so writing the thesis should not be the main thing, right? The amount of time required for writing the thesis should be maybe a PhD thesis, maybe 2 to 3 months is what, especially with all the tools that are available, right? So you may be able to do a good job of writing. See, if you have digested all the material, right, all the literature, etc., actual process of writing the thesis should not take very long. The reason why thesis writing can be stressful is, see, when you write a paper, it is just a 6 pages or something like that, right? So we seem to have control on the entire manuscript, right? We know what is going to go where, etc. But when you have hundreds of pages, then it is like a very large, canvas, right? And as a result, it may be intimidating. So after writing the thesis, you should read it from cover to cover. And that is where, if you are mentoring somebody, you should do the same thing. You should read it from cover to cover. And today, these annotations can be done in, if you are using Acrobat, you can put the annotations right there. Okay, you can so use the Adobe to annotate, and then go back and fix these problems, right? Many of the easy problems are already getting fixed through AI tools and all these smart online tools that are available, right? See, whatever we just did now, I don't have to remember a lot of these things, right? It can automatically .bib files, etc. All these things are usually available. Okay? You don't have to again type all these things. Okay? So we live in a world where a lot of help is available. Okay? So as a result, the expectations have also gone up. Okay, so the people who are reading your thesis are also aware of all the things that are available, right? So you don't get any special brownie points for typesetting these equations and so in nowadays. If you learned how to typeset an equation nicely, wow, I mean, that itself was a big thing, because these were all new tools at that time, and using them was yeah, otherwise, see, I'll tell you, when I wrote my master's thesis, I don't think there was a figure drawing. Was not there. So we had to use, if we had to draw a box or something like that, we will use a hyphen and that vertical bar to create the boxes and things like that. So it was very painful, right? But today it's not like that, right? All these PowerPoint, so many nice tools are available for drawing figures. So if you do a good job there, unfortunately, nobody is going to give you any special marks for that. Okay. So where you should excel is in spending quality time on the actual work that is done, and the publications that you have done and things like that. Okay. What else? We have five
Uh,
more minutes. Yeah, go ahead. Go
so,
ahead.
so this, so this is the period of Jesudha, and I'm from Bangalore. Sir, I have
Hmm.
a question. Like for the thesis writing, since we are all aware that there are a lot of AI tools which are available, which can generate each and every section, maybe the introduction part or the conclusion part or whatever it is.
Hmm.
Is it okay to use such tools for generating the
See, as long as
content
you
for the
can digest all
papers?
the things that it is doing. See, if you are going to blindly do things, right? The AI can generate a lot of things today, right? But if it doesn't become part of your, um, if you don't make it part of yourself, right, then it will be counterproductive for you. Okay, because you have a thesis which looks very impressive, but when you appear for the interview or something like that, you are not reflecting that scholarship. Okay. Well, it's very common. I have attended a lot of interviews, right? The candidates, don't really seem to know beyond whatever little they say in their thesis, right? Even the thesis also, they are not able to say which author wrote this, or that's what I explained already, right? So they don't come across as scholars. They come across as, maybe they, worked with somebody under close mentorship or something like that. See, that is not the point, right? If your mentor, they got you initiated, your mentor will initiate you into some area. And then you are supposed to, grow that with the seed that the mentor has given you. You should grow that plant or a tree, which will provide you the fruits that you are going to enjoy, right? So this AI, etc., that may be there, right? Use it like I was showing you today, right? Why struggle to typeset an equation when the AI tool can help you with, right? That is a fair thing to do, right? But if you are asking it to write entire sections, etc., somehow it is no more your thesis. Okay, so that is where I think you should be careful. Any other questions?
Thank you, sir.
So Vineet, I think I don't see any other questions. We can
Sir,
possibly close.
sir, yeah. Sir, we are very thankful to you and grateful to you for having spared time for us.
Thank you.
Actually, I also apologize for joining late. All the
No
participants,
problem,
I
man.
think Professor Ravi Kumar Saab has been faculty member at IIT Delhi about almost 25 years back. Till then, for 10 years. Then he joined Texas Instruments. And recently he has superannuated from Texas Instruments and is working as a chief learning officer in Venana Tech at Bangalore. And I am his privileged mentee, and he was my PhD supervisor at Delhi. But I go to him today also for my whole problem that way. Thanks to him for mentoring me, and thanks to him for actually addressing us for complete 2 hours today, and with understanding everything from the scratch, how to articulate our thoughts for writing that way. Thank you very much, sir. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I
And
have Dr. Ravi
this,
Madila
this
with
is
me,
my
sir.
actual mailing address. So if anybody wants to
Sir,
send
sir.
in a question or something that they could not ask, you are welcome to ask. Okay?
Right.
Okay. Thanks. Bye bye. All the best to
Thank
you.
you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Thank you very much, sir. Participants, we request in the evening you join 15 minutes before at 4:45, and we'll be starting dot at 5 p.m. So thank you for being here. Thank you very much. Would we close, Ravi?
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
I'm
Please.
sorry, sir. Sir, Ravi
No
Madila is
problem.
also my colleague here. He is coordinating this
Very,
program, sir.
very nice,
Ravi
Professor. How
Madila,
are
sir.
you?
Fine, sir. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Nice meeting you again. Yeah.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. I don't know how to close this. You can close it, please.
Yes, sir. We are closing it.